critique today. The clips for our drawings are up here on the projector stand. If you are gone a day during critiques, then when you get back, then you do a written critique. We're going to park phones because we've got quite a few out right now. And we don't need our phones during our critique at all. We can do that just with our own brains, just as well. Okay. So let's put them in. I don't want them. You can have them back if you have a class period. Real quick. Like I said, you'll pick them up again in the class period. I don't want them, nor do I want to be responsible for them. I'm going to set them up here. We don't spill anything over. Okay. We are going to critique the three views of one object. The way that we're going to do this is we each have three cards to critique instead of just one. So the way that we do this is we'll just, everybody puts up like their bird's eye view. And we look at those, and then we put up our eye level. Does that make sense? Because if we put all of them up all at once, we wouldn't be able to really concentrate on what we're doing. Patricia, can you quickly find your drawings for us? And then do you have a phone on you today? Okay, all right. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put these up just like we have before. You'll put your name next to yours. What we are looking at is these things over here. We use 12 by 18 paper. Use all the space without touching the edges. That's probably easier said than done, I think, on this. Is using all that space and not touching the edges. I think that's kind of a challenge. You know, it's like, because you really have to kind of envision how big are you going to make it on there. You don't want to make it so big that it's going off the edge, but yet you don't want to have all this room left. Correct angles. We talked about if you're trying to find the angle, for instance, like on the legs of the stool. You can hold your pencil at that angle and hold it down to your paper. I think this was the example we talked about that on. Correct proportions. So is the top of the stool, like the part where you would sit, is that the right size compared to the legs? If you drew the little shorty silver stool that's underneath this table over here, that seat's going to look much larger compared to the little short legs than it would on that other one. I think you guys have at your table. It had like a cracked seat. Yeah, because that one has a skinnier top on, a smaller top on it. Yeah. Yep, compared to the bottom one. Okay. Draw and make corrections in pencil. Then we Sharpie. I keep saying Sharpie. That's not a real word, but I think you guys understand what I mean. Is you go over it with Sharpie, and then we erase out the pencil. We're trying on all of these. We're trying to avoid what I call furry lines. You guys know what I mean by furry lines? Okay. So when we're trying to draw, let's say the legs of the stool, we want to try to avoid doing. Oh, my marker's not going to work. Like that with it. Why don't we want furry lines on this?
Because they're bad.
Well, they're not necessarily bad. Sometimes we need those lines. It's a solid, smooth object, okay? If you were drawing an animal with fur, you'd have to have those furry lines. If you were drawing a person with hair, you'd probably have some of that texture. On this, then, if you drew it like that in pencil, that's fine. But then when you go over it with your Sharpie, you want to kind of smooth it out. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And we'll do that also for your next drawings, is we want to avoid, the next couple drawings, we want to avoid furry lines. We just want those smooth lines. But you're going to go over your next two drawings in Sharpie like you did on this one. The next project we'll start tomorrow is still life drawing. So it's going to be a lot of objects in the middle of the table. We'll have all four of these tables together, and there'll be a pile of objects in the center. Okay? And kind of talked to you about this one ahead of time a little bit because she was in here last hour. But you're going to have the rubric for it. Do you remember when we did our hands drawing? We had that rubric. Okay? And you went through and you rated yourself. And then you came up and we conferenced about it. It was really scary, right? Remember? It was really scary. You came up and we talked together about your artwork, what your rating was, and graded it right there together. We're going to do that for the still life drawing, but we're going to add one more step to it. Because you're going to look at that rubric ahead of time, and you're going to kind of set a couple goals for yourself. What I mean by that is you're going to look at a couple of those criteria, and which ones do you really want to focus on for it. Maybe it's furry lines. Maybe that's something that really gives you trouble and you're like, you know what, on this next one, I'm gonna really work on my freelance. Or maybe it's that viewfinder. Maybe that's something that it still just doesn't feel very natural to use. So maybe on the next one, you're really gonna try and use that viewfinder more, okay? So you're gonna choose 2 of the criteria to really focus on it. But we'll get to that tomorrow. So we're gonna start in on our critique. As long as you guys can see the board, we're up at this table. Let me move this one off of here. When we are looking at correct angles, remember we talked about the ellipse? When we're looking at correct angles, we're also talking about that ellipse. Did anyone do the square stool? The wooden one, the black wooden one? Okay. Okay. So on here, this was my example of that ellipse. Remember when you're looking right at it, it looks like a circle, right? So if we look right at the stool, it's a circle. But as soon as that circle starts to turn, it becomes that ellipse. It's kind of like an oval, okay? And then where eye level, it's kind of like a rounded rectangle. And then we start to see the bottom of it, it becomes that ellipse again, okay? So like I said, refer back to this image up on the board. Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at too for correct angles. Please make sure right now that you look through real quick. Do you have your name on all 3 drawings? When these get turned in, it's really hard for me to know who's or whose. Do you have your name on all 3 of them? Yeah. The other thing I want you to make sure you have is you have them labeled what view it was. So we had worm's eye view. When you're looking up at it like you're a worm, you're looking up at it. Eye level, so you don't see the top or the underside of that, or the stool you sit on. And bird's eye view. It's like if you were a bird looking down. Need your name and the levels on each. Okay, let's just start with worm's eye view, since that's at the top of our list. I'm going to erase this off.
So just like a fun fact for my last night, I forgot this part, so like there's that. Like
Oh, okay.
part of the school, I totally forgot it, so.
That's like when we do it, like these guys are working on portraits. There's times, we'll do the same thing. Okay, everybody put up your profile view, everybody put up, and there's times they'll go up when somebody forgets one eyebrow. Or they forget, like, things happen. It happens. I forgot my glasses the other day. How do you get to school without glasses? I don't know, but I did it.
I don't need glasses, so I wouldn't know.
I don't need them for distance, so it's just for, like close up. So I wore my contacts over the weekend. I think that threw me. Am I sitting in your spot or is this your spot? Oh, this is. Okay. Everybody have your name next to you? Okay. Just sit over there. I can't see. Okie dokie. All right, so we're at worm's eye view. So we're looking up at these stools. Now, description step. We're going to do this description step once because I think once we get that done for this first one, we pretty much have the same thing except for the title on the rest of them. So, guys, what is the media that we used on these?
Pencil and Sharpie.
Pencil and Sharpie on
12 by 18.
Very good. Okay. 12 by 18-inch paper. Okay, so we've got our media, we've got our dimensions. Basically, our title on this is probably the view that we used, right? And your names are right next to your artwork. So we're going to kind of skip over that first step now. Using analysis, using those elements and principles, can we talk about what is on the board right now? And then we need you to participate to get your points. So, Summer.
I see very little like value.
All of the lines are, there's a lot of vertical lines in all of them.
Okay, good. too, if you can kind of pick, you know, a specific one to make your statement about it, kind of helps too.
Like in, I'm like, in nutrition, there's a lot of native space.
And we know that negative doesn't mean bad, right? We just mean that it's, the stool is smaller, okay? Good. Go ahead.
All the legs are like proportional, I wanna say.
Give an example what you mean.
Like, Allison's, her two front legs, one is longer than the other, and then put the two back ones are even.
Okay. How about rhythm? What's repeated up here? Somebody that hasn't said anything yet. You see anything that's repeated? Allison, I bet you've got this one. You see anything up there that's repeated?
Stool the same, kind of.
Okay, they used the same object, didn't they? That was repeated, good. Riley, you see anything else up there that's repeated? Besides the subject? The lines, okay, good. Patricia and Maya, anything else? What do you see, Patricia? What's repeated?
Same old sheet.
Okay. Legs are repeated, right? Movement. Movement is created a lot of times by curved lines, diagonal lines, zigzag lines. What do we see for some movement here? Summer.
The bar where the legs are.
Want to tell us which specific one you're talking about?
And Becca's. That's
Okay.
like the best one. It looks like it's like underneath, like inside the chair, not like wrapped around like Maya's is or Cerese's or not mine.
Okay, so it looks like it's moving in there, okay? So what would we use for an element or principle? And I agree. What would we use for an element or principle? They're up there. Okay, so movement, okay. Do you guys remember the difference between shape and form?
Yeah.
What's the difference between
Is
them?
it one like 3D and 2D?
Yep, so which one's, you're right, which one's which?
I feel like shape is 2D.
Yes, okay, so think of shape as like when you were a little kid, you learned your shapes.
Yeah.
Circles, squares, triangles, ovals, things like that.
So,
Forms are the 3D version of it, a pyramid, a cone, a cube, a sphere.
so Becca's appears more form than, let's say, I don't know, Riley's. They just look more like just shape.
Why is that? Or
So
how
the-
is that?
The angle that Becca drew, you can tell that she was like, can I include picture interpretation a little bit, because it's how I can explain it?
Yep.
From looking at Becca's, I can tell that like she was like on the floor and like where the stool stood because of like the angle of the stool, so it's like 3D
Okay.
form. But let's say like, who was this? Allison's, it just looks like it was like flat and just like, it's just shapes
Okay,
instead of like, yeah.
all right. Let's move into interpretation. Now, we know the assignment that this was made from, but if we can maybe dig a little bit deeper, it could be what could be going on. Why would you ever be sitting at this view? What would be your interpretation of what's going on in this picture? Reese, do you have one?
If you got like shrunk,
Okay.
then you would draw something from nowhere.
That'd be your,
If you were shrunk and then you were bored.
Okay.
You decided to draw a chair.
okay. You guys have anything different? Why would you ever be looking at this, or?
do you have an idea for what could be going on in any of these? No?
Maybe it's like, if you're looking at like, maybe it's like a certain person's stool, and like, you're looking at it like as if they've like gone. But maybe you're just, just staring at it, remembering them.
Okay. If you look at Summers, hers is on the far left, and you look at, we'll say Patricia's. Okay, they're both definitely worm's eye view. They're absolutely both worm's eye view, okay? They use two different stools, okay? Does one look more extreme than the other? Like more of an extreme view than the other? Yeah. What tells you that if one's more of an extreme view?
Because you can see more of the line.
That doesn't mean they're right and wrong. It's just the difference between, you can still have worm's eye view, it just depends on how extreme that worm's eye view is. Okay, you can also create more of a tension in the drawing if you have more of an extreme view of something. You'll see a lot of times in advertising, if they're really trying to grab your attention, they'll use more of an extreme view of something, or they'll, for their composition, they'll block off part of it, okay, to make you look at one area, emphasize one area more than another. Okay, we're moving into judgment. Okay, we talked about, in judgment, we use a wish and we use stars. So a wish is a statement that is giving a helpful hint. It's not saying, oh, they did terrible on this. That's not helpful, okay? You could say, I wish they would have done this so it would do this. Okay, so you're giving a solution. Summer, did you have one?
Yeah, I wish that everyone would have had a little more value to make it look like kind of more realistic, because it just looks like plain and blank.
Allison?
I wish I could did more a better job.
Can you be more specific what you mean by a better job? Like
More detail.
more detail? Okay. Becca?
I kind of wish I could have got straighter lines on mine.
Okay. And what do you mean by that? Do you mean less of an angle, or what do you?
This one's weird. This is completely instead of going straight, curved.
Oh, okay. You know
This
what's
one
funny?
is blanked out more.
I'm gonna do this because to me that was an illusion. I couldn't tell if it was drawn that way or if it was the curve of being over the top of this ledge. There we go. Okay. That makes sense, because if we put them on the ledge, then it kind of rounds all around. Okay.
I wish that Bradley would have used a ruler to make it look more realistic.
Okay, on what part?
The legs.
How about some stars, some positives, some successes? A lot of times these come from, maybe you struggled with a certain area. For instance, we were talking about furry lines before. Maybe you struggled with furry lines, but you see someone else has really nice smooth lines. That's something we typically will comment on because that's something we personally struggled with. So, Maya?
Well, this one I have the bar how it is, and then in one of my other drawings, I didn't know how to do it, so it's kind of messed up.
Okay. So you like how you did the bar on this one more than another one? Okay, all right. Other stars?
I kind of like the way Summer did the shading at the bottom.
Why do you like that? What makes
Because it adds a little bit more 3D to it, it could be on glass.
Okay.
Something that reflects it.
Very good. One more, and we're gonna change views. We have one more positive.
I like the shape of what is that thing on Maya's, the little box, because mine always look like trapezoids.
Like the rung, where your feet go? Okay.
I like that. It's good.
All right, let's take those down. We're gonna put eye level up real quick. We're gonna go a little bit faster on this one. I remember we did our animal drawings, and we think, oh, they look so dark, and then you put them up on the board and you step back and you're like, oh, that kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
So they definitely look different when we step away from them. Riley, I always think that what if you saw this assignment a year ago, and somebody told you, next year in art in high school, you're gonna be drawing from observation, you gotta draw in 3 different views on 12 by 18 paper. You'd say, well, forget that, that sounds really hard, right? Well, look what you're doing it. I know that when, right now, with 8th grade, when they see the 12 by 18 paper, they kind of like, what, that's huge, you know? And now that you guys are getting more used to drawing on this size of paper, when you go back, like we do a sketchbook assignment or something, we go back to the 9 by 12 paper, it's gonna be like, how do I even fit a drawing on this? This is too small. So it's definitely what you get used to. You're doing fine. You have to think about how far you've come, okay? All right, so eye level, we know we used Sharpie on 12 by 18 paper. We'll do a couple for analysis, a little bit of interpretation and judgment, and we'll keep moving. So analysis is what we're on right now, elements and principles. I need to hear more from a few of you that have not said a whole lot. Remember, we got to participate to get those participation points. Just breathing the art room air doesn't quite get the points for us. So we got to make sure we're participating. So element or principle that we can talk about. Take turns, not all at once. Sorry.
This category of drawing is more of like a shape besides Becca's. Because it's just one straightforward instead of like at an angle. So it makes it look more just like shapes.
As opposed to a form. Very good.
Becca's is very proportionate, like the legs look like they go on the chair.
Ooh, how about, I don't think we use this one, unity. Do you guys remember what unity is? How it works together. I think my example when we talked about unity in Intro to Art is, if you told me you had a box of chocolates, okay, there might be all different kinds of chocolates, and that might have, some of it might have caramel, some of it might have peanuts in it, but they're all chocolates, right? So it's unified because they're all chocolate. The variety would be the different ingredients within that, but unity is they're all chocolate. So how do they work together? How are they all the same? Unity. And go.
I didn't want to speak again.
Summer, did you have something to add to it?
Okay, Maya said that all the legs work in unity to make the stool appear level.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing, Maya.
To give her a point.
So you can kind of think of unity and variety as a little bit of opposites. One is how it's the same, one is how it's different. So, how about emphasis? Because you remember what emphasis means? Where does your eye go first? Summer?
On Cerese's, there's more emphasis on like the stool seat itself because it's thicker than the rest of the legs.
Okay, Patricia, choose one of these and tell me where your eye goes first on it.
Because of the detail.
Okay, so the emphasis would be on Becca's for you, okay. Riley, can you find one of these to talk about? Which one you want to talk about? Okay. Let's pick Summers. It's over at the left there. What would be the emphasis on Summers, where your eye goes to?
Like where your foot goes.
Okay. Why do you think, I agree, why do you think that's the emphasis? What drew your eye to that point?
I think it looks like a square instead of like a circle. I don't know.
Maybe because it looks different?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
has a shadow.
Excellent, Summer.
Even though mine doesn't like how she did it, my eye goes to that line, just like
Which one?
on the where the
The
feet
rung?
go.
The rung?
Yeah, thingy, not thingy, the rung. But like, even though she messed it up, I kind of like how it just, I don't know, it brought my attention.
Okay. Interpretation. What is going on in these?
Riley's kind of looks like a spider.
Okay.
I feel like it needs a cute little face.
Okay. That last view that we saw where it was the worm's eye view, I've had students say it looks like a spaceship, like an alien spaceship, and the legs are like coming down and they're going to, I don't know, attack something. Okay, so it can be silly as long as it's based on what you're seeing, right? Your interpretation can be completely different than what that artist originally had in mind, but it needs to be based on what you actually are seeing in the work.
The rung in Maya's kind of, to me, interprets like a laser ring.
Ooh, okay. Becca.
Honestly, to me, Austin's kind of looks like the top of like a kitchen chair. Like those two legs would be like the top of it, and then there's that backboard.
Okay.
And this-
I see what you're saying. Yeah, Allison.
I wish I should have put, I forgot I put two more legs on the stool.
Okay.
And I like more detail.
How about judgment? What are our suggestions, our wishes? That's okay. We're all right. We gotta keep moving anyway, so we're gonna move right into judgment. What are some suggestions, Summer?
For Patty's, her back legs, I wish would have been smaller, so they appear like, cause like farther away the smaller they're supposed to look, you know?
Do you mean more narrow?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you mean by small? Because they are shorter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
I
you
mean
mean more
more
narrow.
narrow.
Okay.
'Cause, like the two legs up front, I can't pronounce. I feel like should be fatter because they're closer to like the front of the paper, if that makes sense.
Yep. Becca.
I kind of wish in Summers that the back two legs, the top of them would be like a little further apart.
Okay. Can you explain why?
Because with that it looks like the front legs are here. Yeah, it looks like the back legs are just like completely different and just like
Get a different
smushed
angle.
together.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That's all right. Like I said, you guys, these always look different to us when we step back from them, okay? So make sure you're stepping back from your work as you're working, but other wishes, go ahead.
I wish the legs on the left side of mine were shorter and less angled, because it looks like it's like production. The sticks, you know.
Just all wobbly.
Okay. Reminds me of like a dancer with like sticking his foot out a little bit or something. All right. Any other wishes?
On mine, I kind of wish I did more detail.
Nice. Positive stars, things they did well on, successes. Summer.
I like how straight Maya's lines are.
I like the shape of the little bottom part on Maya's. Like, what is that? The bottom part?
Like the little metal cap.
That little,
Yeah.
cap. It's good.
Riley, do you have a positive for somebody, a star? Shout out?
I thought Becca like had more like detail, like inside of like the legs.
Right, Maya?
I like how someone included like, cause you can see where the black legs go, and they should include like a shadow with it, so like you can see like the other half of the stole, I guess, like when you're looking at it.
Good. All right, we're gonna switch these out for the last one. Bird's eye view. We're gonna be flying above you this time. Well, it's a stool. It's kind of close to a chair, right? Okay, we know they're 12 by 18 paper. We know that it's Sharpie on that paper, and these are the bird's eye view. You have your names next to them. Go. Somewhere did you have? Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So elements and principles for analysis. We'll do a couple of those. We're going to have to move kind of quick on this one, this view. So, element or principle. Start picking on people because I want you guys to get your points. Allison, can you use an element or a principle to talk about any of these? You see where they're hanging up there? Okay. You can talk about any of the elements or the principles and any of the drawings that are up there. What colors do you see, Allison?
Black and white.
Black and white colors, absolutely. Maya.
Summer is it's a balance. A level.
Okay, good. Alright, Patricia.
Becca, it looks like you're really looking down on it.
Okay, so can you use an element or principle to say that?
The way that it's positioned.
So which one would you use for element or principle? They're hanging, do you see where they're at up here? Which one would you use to say that?
Probably balance and proportion.
Okay, alright. Let's help with that view. Riley, can you come up with one? She's like, "Got it." How about emphasis? Where does your eye go first on any of them?
The circles, like,
The top is C.
Why do you think your eye goes there first, Riley? What catches your eye on?
it's like the first thing, like, I like see, like, before we go, like, the legs and stuff.
I like spaces is not really proportionate, so like this is C an angle.
It's not in proportion, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay, alright. Interpretation, anything on these?
My rod is like a trapezoid.
Okay. Maya?
Spiritual drawing to me looks like a Superman logo kind of.
Okay.
Trapezoid.
Summer?
I don't know how to explain it. I feel like in Allison, it looks like you could be straight above it, but it also looks like you could be, if there was an extra leg, like there's like straight under it, right underneath of it.
Okay. Becca? It looks like what?
And you add two like little things on the side, it looks like it could be like a little person.
Okay, alright. Maya?
Riley's kind of looks like Mikey Wazowski to me.
Okay. Alright, since we are running really low on time, we're gonna stop on positives. Can you give us some positive comments before we take these down? What are some positives, some successes we see on these?
I like that Rebecca used, like, the detail, like, on the bottom part, like, the.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Becca's chair, it looks safe to sit on.
There you go. Okay, good. Let's see.
Rebecca's shredded Bernard's
What'd you say, Hen?
Rebecca's at shredded Bernard's down, it looks like you can't just sit on it instead of falling off.
I like what this is fine with safe. It looks safer, huh? All right. We're gonna paper clip these together. I'll get some paper clips for you guys. Just put them on the Van Gogh table before you leave.